If in the previous part we lifted our gaze together toward the peak of Olympus to listen to the voices of the gods, the great forces that govern the sky, the earth and fate, then now we will step closer to the ground, to where those who carry half divine, half mortal blood begin their journeys, taking upon themselves the great stories of their age. That is the age of heroes. Take a deep breath in, and then exhale very slowly. Imagine that night has grown late. The city outside has quieted, leaving only the wind slipping through the window frame, the steady whir of a fan, and inside your mind, a wooden door slowly opening. Behind that door is a very different world. No longer just the throne of Zeus or Poseidon's trident, but the sound of footsteps belonging to those who stand between two shores. No longer fully gods, and not yet entirely just humans. They are called heroes. The Greeks believed that once, between the golden age of the gods and the weary, tangled age of ordinary people, there existed a special class of beings. They carried a portion of the gods' strength, yet lived, loved, feared, and made mistakes just like us. Heracles, Perseus, Theseus, Jason. They were the bridges between sky and earth. We will begin with a figure considered to inaugurate that era, Perseus. Imagine a room of bronze buried deep underground. In it, a young woman named Danae is locked away, because her father, King Acrisius, has heard an oracle foretelling that the son born from Danae would be the one to kill him. Terrified of destiny, he does not try to change himself, but instead tries to imprison the future. The young woman is stripped of the sky, stripped of light, left only with the sound of her own breathing. But myth always begins from the small cracks in a prison. Zeus comes to Danae not through doors, not past guards, but as a shower of golden rain, seeping through every gap, flowing down across her skin, her hair, her trembling hands. From that strange encounter, Perseus is born, a child who carries within himself both the fear of a curse and the hope of a new beginning. When he learns he has a grandson, King Acrisius does not dare kill the boy directly. He only dares to set Danae and Perseus adrift upon the sea in a wooden chest. That is the first time in Perseus's life that the waves decide in place of humans. Instead of swallowing them, they push the chest toward an island, where a gentle fisherman finds it and raises mother and child as his own. Perhaps in our lives, we too have once been like that wooden chest, thrown out of our safe harbor, not knowing whether we would sink or float. Yet somehow, there are always shores that appear, kind strangers who pull us out of the water. Perseus grows up from such a salvation, until one day, the king of the island, a man greedy and full of lust, wants to take Danae as his wife. Perseus stands in front of his mother, with nothing but his bare hands. The king feigns generosity, saying that everyone is bringing him wedding gifts. So what will Perseus offer? In a moment of youthful rashness, the young man answers, "I will bring you the head of Medusa." Medusa, the woman with snakes for hair, whose gaze can turn anyone who looks at her to stone, is not merely a monster. She was once a beautiful girl, cursed after an incident in Athena's temple. From victim, she became a symbol of terror, hunted by the very world that had failed to protect her. Perseus wants to protect his mother, but unintentionally binds himself to a vow that almost certainly leads to death. And so, the hero's journey begins from there, not from strength, but from a hasty promise made out of love for a loved one. Luckily, the gods watch over him. Hermes gives Perseus winged sandals. Athena gives him a shield, polished like a mirror. These items are not just weapons, but reminders. To face the monsters in life, sometimes we should not look at them directly. We need to keep a certain distance. We need a mirror to reflect them, to observe indirectly, more calmly. Perseus is not alone. He is guided to the old grey sisters, who share a single eye between them, and he must deftly snatch it away to force them to reveal Medusa's whereabouts. He travels to the edge of the world, where night and stone blend into one another, where the stone statues are the unlucky ones who once looked into Medusa's eyes. Perseus advances, not staring straight at her, but looking through the shield. One stroke of the blade, one moment of silence, and then everything changes. From Medusa's blood, Pegasus, the white-winged horse, springs up into the sky. In tragedy, Greek myth always leaves a doorway open for the miraculous. On his way back, Perseus encounters a girl chained to a rock by the sea, Andromeda, awaiting sacrifice to a sea monster. He saves her, not as a reward, but as a natural continuation of his path. The one who was once saved now becomes the savior of others. He uses Medusa's head to turn danger into stone, then puts it away again, not boasting. In the end, through the whirl of destiny, Perseus accidentally kills King Acrisius during a discus-throwing contest. The old prophecy comes true, not through scheming, but through an accident. The Greeks tell this to remind us. There are things that the more we try to flee from, the closer we draw to them. What we can choose is not to avoid fate, but how we live while we are inevitably moving toward it. Perseus is a hero of intelligence, of gifts received and then passed on, of daring to return and face the very origin of his own story. But the age of heroes does not stop there. It grows more intense, more precarious with Heracles. Heracles, or Hercules in the Roman telling, is a figure whom the Greeks both love and fear at once. He is so strong that no beast can oppose him, yet his heart is full of cracks. From babyhood, he strangles with his tiny hands the two snakes sent to kill him. Strength seems to be Heracles' destiny, but strength does not save him from error. When he is grown, with a wife, children, and a peaceful home, Hera strikes him with a fit of madness. In that blind frenzy, he kills those he loves most. When he comes back to his senses, he cannot believe his eyes. The hands that strangled monsters have now crushed his own family. Here, Greek myth does not gloss anything over. They allow a hero to commit a grave crime, not to condemn him, but to pose a question. After doing something that cannot be undone, what should a person do? Heracles goes to Delphi and asks Apollo. The answer is not instant forgiveness, but a long road, 12 labors. He must serve a cowardly, envious king and perform tasks that seem impossible, slaying the Nemean lion, cleaning the Augean stables, capturing the boar, picking the golden apples, descending into Hades to lead Cerberus up. Each task is both an external challenge and an internal exercise. When the Greeks recount these labors, they are not merely boasting of strength. They want to show that atonement is not something that happens in a moment, but an entirely different way of living, one made of discipline, endurance, and patience. Heracles does not forget his crime, but he does not let it bury him either. He carries it, like he carries the lion skin on his shoulders, heavy, yet eventually turned into armor. In the end, when his life finishes in the flames he himself has lit, Heracles is brought to Olympus and becomes a god. That is not a reward for being the strongest, but because he has completed the journey, from innocence to wrongdoing, to repentance, to transforming pain into something that benefits the whole world. Heracles reminds us that within each person there is a latent strength. But true strength does not lie in the blow we strike. It lies in what we choose to do after realizing we have hurt others. If Perseus is the hero of intelligence and beginnings, Heracles is the hero of atonement and endurance. Theseus, These, is the hero of the city and of social order. Theseus's world lies not at the sea's edge or in deep forests, but along roads where bandits, cheats, and bullies prey on the weak. Theseus grows up far from Athens, not knowing he is a king's son. When the time comes, he lifts the stone under which his father once placed a sword and sandals, then chooses to walk back to the city instead of taking a boat, the longer, harder path, but one full of experience. On that road, he meets one villain after another. The club-wielding robber, the one who ties people to two bent trees and tears them apart, the one who forces travelers to lie on a bed and then stretches or cuts them so they fit. Those twisted punishments are symbols of injustice, the strong always wanting to reshape the weak to their own liking. Theseus kills them one by one, but what is remarkable is this: he uses their very own methods of punishment against them, not as entertainment, but to end a cycle. By the time he reaches Athens, the road behind him is safer. He has not just traveled home, he has cleared the path for those who follow. Think about how often, in life today, we walk our own roads without caring whether they will be safe for those who come after. Theseus teaches that every individual journey can contribute something to the community if we are willing to pull out a few thorns along the way. His most famous story is set in the labyrinth of Crete, with the monster Minotaur. If we look beyond the bloodshed, we find a story about a young man who voluntarily faces the common fear of his entire city. Every 9 years, Athens must send young men and women to Crete as offerings to the Minotaur, a half-man, half-bull creature locked in a maze. Theseus cannot bear the thought of his city living under such fear. He volunteers to go, not as a victim, but as the one who will solve the problem. In Crete, a small thread named Ariadne is what helps him through the maze. Ariadne, the girl who falls in love with a distant hero, gives him the ball of thread so that after killing the Minotaur, he can find his way back out. Greek storytellers are subtle. They never let a hero triumph alone. There is always someone, often a quiet figure, lifting them up. A ball of thread, a piece of advice, a boat waiting at the shore. Yet on the journey home, Theseus abandons Ariadne on an island. The reasons differ from version to version, but the result is the same. The girl who entrusted all her faith and hope is left behind in solitude. Such mistakes make Theseus more human. He is brave in that he dares to go, dares to face danger, but he is weak in that he does not fully uphold gratitude and loyalty. Near Athens, Theseus forgets to change the black sails to white ones, as he had promised his father, causing King Aegeus to think his son has died and to throw himself into the sea. That sea later bears his name. Once again, myth reminds us, even heroes can be careless, and a small carelessness can kill someone waiting in hope. This is not to condemn Theseus, but to make us, listening to this story on a quiet night, ask ourselves how many times we have forgotten to change some little sail in our lives, letting others misunderstand and be hurt. Thus, if Perseus is a story of a reckless promise, Heracles a story of atonement, and Theseus a story of social responsibility and the cost of negligence, then Jason, is a story of ambition and the fragility of loyalty. Jason grows up far from home, his father's throne usurped. When he returns, he meets the man who has taken his father's crown. That king, soft-spoken and cunning, tells him, "If you are truly worthy, go and bring back the golden fleece. I will return the kingdom to you." The golden fleece lies in Colchis, at the far eastern edge of the world, guarded by a dragon and strange rites. Jason does not go alone. He summons the greatest heroes of the time aboard a ship called the Argo. Heracles, Orpheus, Atalanta, Castor, Pollux. They all embark together. They are not just warriors, but a collection of different facets of a group. Strength, music, speed, wit. They stop at islands, help those in trouble, break curses. The whole voyage is a small picture of life. Rarely can we accomplish anything great with just one kind of ability. When they reach Colchis, Jason cannot claim the fleece by brute force. The king sets him impossible tasks: to tame fire-breathing bulls, to sow dragons' teeth so that warriors spring from the soil, then defeat them. Without Medea, the king's daughter, a gifted sorceress, Jason would have failed. Medea gives him the ointment that keeps his skin from burning, the trick that makes the warriors turn on and kill one another, the magic that lulls the dragon, guarding the fleece to sleep. In the darkness where the golden fleece hangs on a tree, Jason reaches out and touches it. The warm, golden light of the fleece is not only glory, but also a question. Is he worthy of it when his success rests on someone else's love and betrayal? On their way home, pursued by her father, Medea uses the cruelest way to delay him. She kills her own younger brother and throws his pieces into the sea to slow the chase. Jason, by his silence, is complicit. That is the moment when his heroic journey takes on a very dark hue. When they finally return home, they realize that a throne is almost never returned peacefully. Plots to murder, revenge, and flight follow one after another. In the end, Jason grows weary and abandons Medea, choosing to marry another princess to secure more power. Medea responds with a fury that shakes all of Greece. She kills Jason's new bride, kills even their own children, then rides away in a chariot drawn by dragons. Jason does not end his life in glory, but in oblivion, crushed beneath a rotting beam from the old Argo. The ship that once carried dreams and courage decays like his own ambition. The Greeks do not tell this story to judge or to lament. They use it as a small mirror to ask, ambition is necessary, but at what point does it make us abandon those who helped us, abandon our own conscience? The age of heroes, therefore, is not only filled with splendor, but also with very human fractures. Looking back at the four names, Perseus, Heracles, Theseus, Jason, what do we see? We see children born from the fears of adults, young men who set out because of an oracle, a promise, a family debt. We see men who make mistakes, love passionately, grow angry, sometimes act cruelly, yet must always face the consequences of their actions. The Greeks did not need perfect heroes. They needed stories real enough that when night fell and they recounted them around the hearth, they could ask themselves, if it were me, what would I do differently? The age of heroes is also the time when people begin to realize that the gods will not resolve everything. The gods are still present, still granting gifts, still occasionally intervening, but for most of the journey, the ones walking are humans. It is their choices, whom they love, whom they trust, whether they keep promises or betray them, whether they flare up or restrain themselves, that push the story in one direction or another. And that is why these tales still reach us, even after thousands of years. When you hear of Perseus facing Medusa, you may think of yourself confronting a fear you cannot yet look at directly, daring only to see it through the mirror of books or other people. When you hear of Heracles bearing his 12 labors, you may remember the days you quietly tried to make amends, unseen with no applause. When you hear of Theseus forgetting to change the sail, you may reflect on the times you were careless with someone waiting for your word. When you hear of Jason and Medea, you may ask yourself, where is the boundary between ambition and betrayal? The age of heroes is an enlarged reflection of human life. What we experience within a small room, they experience on the scale of a kingdom. What we feel in a single relationship, they feel among city-states, between gods and mortals. Now, as the night grows a little deeper, imagine yourself standing on an ancient Greek shore. The wind carries the smell of salt and olive leaves. In the distance, wooden ships are preparing to set sail. Aboard are not gods, but ordinary young men and women carrying their dreams, fears, mistakes, and hopes. They turn to look back at Olympus, where the gods still sit among the clouds, and understand this. The gods may offer some protection, but the road ahead is still theirs to walk. The age of heroes closes when the world begins to enter even larger, more complex wars. Wars of city against city, of clan against clan, like Thebes and Troy. There, heroes do not only fight monsters, but must face their own kin, their allies, their sworn oaths. But that will be the story of the next part. Tonight, you only need to remember one very gentle thought. Within you, too, there is a small Greek hero. Not one meant to slay dragons, but one who, each day, quietly chooses one right thing, no matter how small, among countless easy but wrong choices. And in that way, the age of heroes has never truly ended. It has simply moved inside each person, waiting to be retold through your own life.